Brought to you by Mint Mobile. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joy, and today is Thursday, April 25th, 2024, and I have the awesome Mark Watson, Soldier Knows Best, here with me. Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. I am doing excellent. How about you?
I'm really happy. I'm good. It's been a lot of travel for me, so I'm finally home for a little bit. And Rabbit just arrived this morning, so I need to unbox that. So yeah, let's talk about that. I think we can meta talk if you want about AI a little bit if you want to. I've already talked a lot about the AI pin on the show, and I know that you don't have one, I don't have one. So I don't want to focus on that too much. I'm kind of more curious about what your thoughts are on R1 after a day, because I just got mine a day late because I was traveling, but then a lot of our colleagues and friends got theirs, and there's a lot on social. There's a few little videos and stories out there. Actually, I will link to a really great article by Matt Swider, because he I think so far the most comprehensive day one kind of review I've read. By the time you get this podcast, there'll be a few more days, so I'm sure there'll be a few more things to watch and read. But what's your initial thoughts, Mark? How do you feel about this whole thing? Are you kind of like, get off my lawn, or are you like, ooh, this is intriguing?
Yeah, no, I think it is intriguing, and I think we are in the early. Of course, we're in the early phase of it, and I think patience is key. And I think sometimes with technology, a lot of people aren't patient to maybe play the long game. But like with Humane's launch, they definitely have some issues, right? Like it's a product that costs a lot, but also just didn't execute properly. But I'm rooting for that vision of what they had in a couple of years, in a few years, to actually being a good product that people would want to go out and buy. So Rabbit, I think, is definitely coming in at a lower price end. So it's less of a risk, I would say, as far as you being disappointed, because it still costs money, but it doesn't cost as much as the Humane pen, where you'll be a little bit more like maybe optimistic for it. But I think this space it has a place in the future, right? And I think we're in the early stages of it. And I just think that a lot of the early adopters are going to help set that foundation for something like this, where I do like the hands-free type of thing. So I think there's a place for it.
Yeah, my big thing, and we're going to talk about Meta in a bit, is like I feel like an accessory to your phone is the way to go. Like, this is kind of like that in a way, because yes, it's standalone, has a SIM card, but I think we could go even cheaper. I think we could go earbuds or Meta, Ray-Bans would be the perfect application for this, especially if the Ray-Bans get some sort of very simple AR display. I'm not talking, kind of Google Glass, just corner of your eye, something that just show you some basic information. You can use, like your finger along the temple to like scroll, kind of like the same interface as R1, because R1 does have a touchscreen, it turns out, which I thought was going to be much more used, but from all the stuff I've read and seen so far, it's all jog wheel select, right? Like, so it's very BlackBerry, which I don't know, like the whole, I'm kind of a sucker for this stuff because I love good design, but at the same time, if you contrast, as you said, AI pins whole approach, and I'm here in Silicon Valley and I see this hubris, this like, holier than thou, like we know what the right answers to everything approach that Silicon Valley often has, this arrogance, Sometimes it works, but sometimes it just comes across as like, what bubble do you live in? Like, where's your brain? Like, it's one thing to try to push forward technology. I'm all for it. But I feel like with Humane, they were just too pretentious, and so and they never calmed down. Like, there was attempts at some point, oh yeah, maybe it's not replacing your phone, and I'm like, you already kind of like went there, and now you kind of like kind of soured the stew, as it were. So I don't know, but I never got a good vibe. And then the pricing and the whole approach, and then of course the reviews and the results. With this, I felt that right from the get-go, it was kind of like hip, but not and a little over the top, kind of like OnePlus nothing. The marketing's a little crazy, but we know it's kind of tongue in cheek. We know they're not taking themselves too seriously, just seriously enough. And I can totally live with that. That works for me, And so, of course, Teenage Engineering do the design. The product is very simple, very affordable, $200, no subscription, but it's still a beautiful product from everything I've seen. And then on top of that, you've got this interface or the scroll wheel. You've got the little animated character. Like, they've just thought out some of the details. And we know functionality-wise so far, it doesn't really do very much more than AI pin, right? I actually thought it'd come out of the gate with a little more. What about you?
Yeah. Like it all comes down to how many questions do you ask during the day, right? Like, these devices are trying to give you information. Like, if you are asking a lot of questions and stuff, you'll get the functionality of it. But yeah, I honestly want to see a mix of both, the Humane Pen and Rabbit, like something that you could wear if you want to, and something that does have those physical controls, so you don't have to, worry about trying to, laser to your hand all the time. And stuff.
The laser thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's super sci-fi and cool, but I feel like the overheating, the technology, and also, like the fact that they have like an old Qualcomm chip in there, at least, Rabbit's like, we picked a cheap, like literally not old, but just cheap 4G Helio G series from MediaTek. Screw it. That's all we need for this, right? No pretense here.
And they're so small too. Like, it comes down to the battery. I think that's the biggest thing. So what have you heard about the battery so far from the Rabbit, from the first day impression?
Obviously better than Humane Pin, but at the same time, it's not like phone. Like, it's probably maybe a day if you don't use it too much. But also, I think essentially the Rabbit R1 is a half-size phone, so it charges really fast from what I hear because the battery is small. So at the same time, if you don't use it too much, and of course we'll have to see after a week, how battery life on a phone especially, it changes. I think with the iPin, the problem is that you don't really know what it's doing. Sometimes it looks like it's just idling and using up a lot of battery. Whereas this thing, I bet you if it's asleep, it's just like, because I bet you under the hood, this is just a MediaTek, like a $25 bill of materials phone that you would buy in India for less than $100. That's what it is, right? With a really cool shell around it. And cool marketing, right? And then of course everything is in the cloud, the whole AI, the whole OS running on top. I bet you at the core of it is Android, like 100%. Like, there is the hardware. That's why it took them so little time. This is basic, silly, simple, straightforward stuff. And this is the other thing. They weren't trying to kind of reinvent the wheel too much. They're just like, let's make this cool hand-sized thing and make it so that we have no obstacles in creating the hardware and software. The obstacles are going to be in the AI implementation, the routing of AI, which AI do we use for what questions? That's a big thing that I think Humane actually is nailing too. Like, I think that's their strength, is they have the best router in the industry right now. Me and Max Weinbach were talking about that last week on the podcast, and it's a tough challenge. It's like, Mark asks a question. Okay, who answers it? ChatGPT 4, GPT 3.5? Should we send that to, Meta? Should we send that to Gemini? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I wish both companies just join forces. Hey, just go ahead and merge. Because look, the reality, the big dogs are coming with their implementation, whether Apple, puts that into the Apple Watch and, revamp Siri or something. Like, I think they both have some good things going for them, but, the big dogs are coming and,
And you make a very good point, that I think Matt made in his story is like, WWDC is June 10th. Yeah. Like, Apple's going to do something, like, then they don't have the car to worry about now. Like, that ship has sailed, and now they're like, okay, AI, all the things. And Apple's going to do it right. Like, I feel like they're not going to do a half-ass job.
Yeah.
So you're right. And then Samsung has shown us some cool stuff already. Even though I honestly don't use it much on my S24 Ultra. But I've used the imaging stuff quite a bit. Like, I was at a G-Wagon event like 2 days ago, the electric G-Wagon launched by Mercedes. Really cool. Lots of celebrities. Travis Scott performed. A bunch of other, really famous people were there. And I was like, I couldn't get shots always of the car with, I didn't want nobody in the shot, but I wanted like there is sometimes a hand on the car or something, and like the Samsung AI just nailed it. It was
Yeah,
really
yeah.
good.
It's so
So
fun to use.
yeah. I hate to say that, but I do love the AI tools for those kind of things. Like, or
Yeah,
you forgot to take a landscape for a 16:9 thumbnail. And you're like, oh crap, I shot that at 4:3. Just extend
mhm.
it. Nice.
Yeah, and I don't even do Photoshop a lot, but I've been using their Photoshop beta. Yesterday I played around with it and just being able to expand the image and the background removal was so good with the new beta. Like, yeah, that stuff is fun. Like that's the type of stuff that is easy, hands-on AI. That I mean, maybe a few years ago it would just be called a new feature instead of like
Yeah.
AI. But yeah, that stuff is cool. And I think with Rabbit and Humane with the Humane Pen, I think it is. I would say I agree with you. It's less about the hardware right now. It's you're trying to get people hooked on. I need to carry this thing out with me when I go. Right. It's the use case of it. Make me understand why I need to use this, and then you can explore with different options with the hardware, and especially as battery technology hopefully makes some more leaps where you can do more and not worry about the battery draining in a couple hours. So yeah, it's more about trying to get people hooked on the use of the product.
And we've kind of seen this before because I kind of feel like what Apple's going to do is leverage the AirPod ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
They have the AirPods are ubiquitous. If you have an iPhone or any kind of Apple device, 99% of you out there have AirPods, right? So the reality is you have the screen on the phone, right? You could have like Siri could have a very basic rabbit-like visual interface, right? Where you go like, I'm not going to do the call word, but and it pops up, and now you do the Chat GPT kind of question instead of the dumb Siri question, and you get basically an answer that comes through your earbuds,
Mhm.
and you ask your earbuds, maybe you tapped, maybe it's constantly listening, who knows, like it is today, but who knows how they implement. But the bottom line is it can display stuff, right? You can point your camera on your iPhone at a thing and say describe the scene, right? Like all that's totally feasible. Why do you need another device? It's whimsical. Like I love or as I said, the design, the approach, but I think the big challenge and the big tech is going to be happening in the back end. I actually thought Rabbit was going to be slightly different. Like right now, there's only 4 things you can hook up: Spotify, DoorDash, Uber, and Midjourney, which I think is kind of weird because, like,
Mhm.
why can't, like, wouldn't you set at your computer to generate images on Midjourney? That seems to be more like my vibe. All
Yeah.
right, roll up our sleeves, big screen, and let's get going here for a few hours of rabbit hole. Sorry, rabbit hole. That's funny. But the point is, like, I don't see that being a use case for R1. But at the same time, I thought it was going to be more like an actual Android phone in the inside, which I think it is. Running actual Android apps. You select the apps from the Play Store you want to install, and it knows how to tap the right things to make the right things happen. That's what I
Mhm.
thought it was going to be. Like, I thought it was going to go to the cloud, understand what you said, then come back to R1 and say, okay, the sequence of taps to do this on Uber, if you're logged in, is cluck, 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 cluck. And it does it all. Like you don't see it happening, but it's actually like doing the taps on the app in the background, right? And so, Max was saying, well, why do that when you can run Uber on a virtual machine in the cloud altogether? You don't even need to run that on the phone. To me, I was saying run on the phone because it's private. You log in on the phone. It's secure that way. Once it's logged in, you're not giving your credentials to anyone. It's not even in the cloud. It would be Rabbit just pushes buttons for you. To me, that's kind of like what I thought was going to be happening, but it seems to be just happening in a Windows instance or something.
The way you describe that reminds me of like the Black Mirror episode where you can like make a virtual yourself and they live in this machine and they basically like do everything for you but as you, and you're not paying attention to it, but they can go ahead and start the toaster and stuff like that. I think that was the episode with John Hamm. I can't remember what it was, but
Yeah, I think I
uh
remember that.
yeah, so that exactly is that's exactly how it should be, I think. Yeah, because that would make sense. It's smart enough to be able to know, okay, if you're wanting to just to know it can read the screen, it can read the buttons and the layout and be able to, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense.
And then it's like, say you're booking a flight on United or something. If like me, you have status, it knows your preferences. It knows by default you already set your departure airport, your favorite meal, your favorite seat, your favorite like amenities. You don't even have to tell it that. It's just automatic, right? Like it's just works. That's kind of thought, because to me it's like running the instance in the cloud like they're doing, but without you actually having control over it. I'm not sure. Like, I think there's more setup that needs to happen on the web or in the app, in my opinion. But maybe once I use it, it'll make more sense. I don't know. I'm just super interested to see how it pans out. And whether it ends up being a pin on a chest or, a device you hold that you carry with you as a second thing, or Meta glasses or your AirPods, I think there's a lot of potentially, and I think it's going to come down to what people prefer, right? I wouldn't even be surprised if, like, I don't think Humane's going to do it because they're really deeply invested in like a separate device that's standalone. But I think that I wouldn't be surprised if a third party comes in, like a third player, enter player 3, and it's like a tiny pin that's a Bluetooth thing. It's just a Bluetooth thing. It needs your phone. It's just an app and a Bluetooth thing,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's where we're going for some people, right? And at that point, I'm saying, like, do you even need the Bluetooth thing? You have AirPods, or do you need the Bluetooth thing? You have Meta glasses. Oh. But I'm not sure long term it's viable, and that's kind of why I think Rabbit's approach is smart, is because I could see a bazillion versions of this hardware made by Rabbit, for like whoever, different colors, different shapes, different form factors, no screen on some of them, no cameras on some of them. You know what I'm saying? Like, just because of you want something really small, we made one, like whatever,
And the price is right.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Right. Yeah.
And because honestly, I was talking to a few people about it. We really think this is a $25 bill of materials, because they are making probably, it's not costing them more than total like $50 with shipping and stuff, and then the $150 on top is them paying for the servers, which is a very smart approach. And Jesse, the founder, actually said that the cost of the AI in the cloud in larger numbers is actually not that high. That's why they don't want to do a subscription. They think they can basically monetize the whole thing using the hardware, which I think is really interesting, because at $200, I'm like, yeah, it's not for everyone, but it's way more accessible than, $799 or whatever.
Yeah, we're all getting burned out on subscriptions. Like I just went through it. Like, I looked at how many things am I paying for every month. I did that yesterday. I'm like, oh.
I did it for my taxes earlier this month, and I was just like, oh. Wow. Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
But look, I think it's cool. I don't know, man. I think you should try to get one, and just ping Ryan Fenwick, and he'll send it to you right away. What?
You convinced me to get one.
I mean, it's even if it's just, I'm sure you'll get views just for the cuteness of the thing. Everybody wants to touch that thing once it's out of the box. Like, I don't know, it's orange, it's cute, it's got a rabbit ears that perk up when you talk. Like, I don't know, like, just I dig it. Yeah. And then at least Spotify is a little bit more popular of a music service, and Tidal. I mean, I love Tidal, but I don't pay for it, but I think it's a really great concept. If you're really into high quality audio, it makes perfect sense. But, again, this is a disconnect with AI pin, right? Like the Humane is like, why go for the most expensive, highest end service? Oh, but because we don't want to compromise. Well, like, what planet do you live on? Okay. Oh, sorry. You live in planet Silicon Valley. I forgot. No, but like, what I'm saying? It's like, come on, like, scale it down just a little,
Start low, aim high.
I know, right? So any other thoughts you have on this? Like, what do you think you want to see? Like, if you had to say today to Jesse, hey, this is a feature you need tomorrow, what would it be?
I would say, I don't know.
The tough one, right?
I'm honestly I'm happy to see something different and new, and companies going forward. And I just want them to ultimately just listen to the consumers, listen to the feedback, and accept it, learn from it, from reviewers, from the customers, and be very transparent about, this is what you're asking for, this is what we were thinking, and then executing that. And I think that's the best way, because I don't know what's going to make this a great selling product, but I just know that at the very minimum, people these days want transparency, and they want to feel like that you have to really focus on that community that they have.
Yeah, I think for me, the two things I would ask is access to the Google ecosystem. I know that's a tough one because privacy, security, but being able to have it know my emails, being able to have it know my calendar. I'm also Google Play Music, or rather YouTube Music now, is my where my music is, simply because I got it for free from Google years ago, and then I kind of stuck with it, mostly because I could upload my own content. So like I have all these old vinyl 12 inches that I digitized years ago back in the 90s, and just, was able to upload to Google, and now I can listen to them on my phone anytime, anywhere, kind of thing. So, like that's my wish list, but I know that's a tough one, probably. It's probably a big one, but, smaller. I'm more of a Lyft than a Uber user. So maybe Lyft, maybe add another food service in addition to DoorDash, and definitely more music services. I think that overall Apple Music would be baller, because I have so many of that people I know on Apple Music. And even the entire Apple ecosystem to some extent, I think would also be a pretty welcome thing. So see what happens. But yeah, I don't think I need any kind of social media on this. Like, I think more like productivity based stuff would really be cool for me.
Yeah. Work base.
And then, of course, I don't know if they could do that maybe with the app on the phone. Access to text messages, even though I know that, a lot of us have messaging in the cloud with iMessage or whatever. Like I'm on an iPhone, and Google has that like messages in the cloud thing. Like it'd be nice to access that somehow, so I can see my messages or hear and say, hey, what's the last text I got from Mark? And then it says, oh, Mark said this. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, context helps that way. But we'll see how it goes. I just think even if it's a dud in 3 months from now or 6 months from now, they just don't stick around. I'm like, this is $200 of fun. It's a toy. Yeah. I'm happy with it. Can't say that about an $800 thing though. It's like Vision Pro. I'd love to try it or buy one, but I don't think I can justify it. It's just too much money, and I don't think I need it. And I don't think I can recoup it in content fast enough. So, speaking of which, let's talk about that. You have one, and you unboxed it, and you saw the news recently that they're cutting production a little bit. I'm not surprised, but what's your general take? Are you still using it? Do you find that there's one use case that stands out, etc.?
Yeah, I use it every night at the very least. And I use it for 95% of the time after the first, couple of weeks with it. 95% of the time I'm watching movies with it. I'm watching movies, 3D movies and stuff like that. And I use it when I'm laying in bed and I'm watching the movie, and then I eventually, go to sleep. I take it off though. So for me, it is that personal movie theater. That's the number one reason why. But I do watch a lot of movies all the time, and when I'm traveling, it's a great thing to have. So because I use it like that, I'm happy with the price, because it is the best TV that I have. It's the best projector that I have, and I use it a lot. But if you're not, if you're not using it for that feature, I think the productivity is good, but I don't find myself reaching for it to help me edit and stuff, because I don't really edit that much on the go and stuff. So, I did my unboxing video, and I just kind of, I am wanting to do a long-term review on it. That's really kind of in general what it is, but it's just so good when it comes to watching movies. It's so good. And I go to movies all the time, but I'm tired of sitting next to someone who's going to be coughing,
exactly. And then the popcorn and freaking like talking to your neighbor, taking phone calls. People are just not okay these days.
And the price, and I'm a movie buff, and I spend you can spend a lot of money going to the movies a lot, every year, but that's the main reason for me. But yeah, they do have a hard problem for outside of those hardcore people who are willing to do that for the content watching. I think that, hearing these reports of that they are cutting back on production, like you said, it's not surprising. But I don't think it's the end of their journey, right? I don't think they're just not going to, come out with a second version or something.
No, I agree. So plus, they have the money, right? Like I say, they could totally do that without any problems.
Yeah, yeah. Especially
Yeah.
like you said, they got rid of the car, which I mean, I can imagine how much money they're saving with that. But yeah, so it is cool. I'm interested in it. Like I'm interested to see where it goes, and I think that they're working on eventually probably getting to a lower cost version. Of course, that's going to be lighter and may not do everything. But if they just focus on something that's just for video watching, like forget all that other stuff, but just this is your best personal movie to access your movies on with Apple with iTunes and stuff, then they can have a winner.
I agree. I think you nailed the use case. I think that's what I hear from everybody who has it. And you can make an argument that if you spend a lot of time at the movies and you're a big movie buff, this is totally worth the $3,500, right? And
Yeah.
I think in that sense, it's perfectly logical. I still don't think it's for me, but I think a cheaper model might be for me. And for me, I would take out all of things like the eyesight stuff, and
Yeah.
like make it a little lighter, and of course, as somebody who wears glasses, I don't want to have to like pay for expensive prescription inserts and stuff. Find a way to make it just work, would be great, or that the inserts are universal and they work with
Mm.
future Vision Pro devices. That's probably a harder sell, but look at the Apple Watch. It's been using the same wireless charger since day one. So
Mhm.
maybe they can do something about that. But yeah, I think I don't see myself playing too many games or working out or even like desktop extension. I don't know. That's not what appeals to me there. I think that I took some spatial video when I went to Antarctica in February with Theo, my spouse, and it was amazing. I'll share it with you, the folder, because I couldn't watch them, right? I don't. But I sent them to like all our friends, who have Vision Pros, right? Like,
Mhm.
and they're like, "Oh, cool! I feel like I'm in Antarctica, 3D
Yeah.
icebergs, penguins and stuff." So yeah, I'll share the folder with you. You can check it out. But I think for that, it's like as a photography buff, that appeals to me, right? But I did quickly notice that some major limitations. But of course, landscape makes sense. But you can't zoom at all on the phone. Like you have,
Mhm.
so I'm in Antarctica. Like I'm in the middle of a whole school of penguins, but I want to zoom in and show you what they're doing. I'm like a few feet away, but a wide field of view of a 1x camera on a phone. Like even if you're 3 feet from something, it just looks like it's far away.
Mhm.
So it's good for this kind of landscape grandiose stuff. A little harder to sell, as it were, for something that's closer up. And I can understand that, because how are you going to make that work if it's like trying to copy reality? Your eyes don't zoom, so like
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's really cool. I think there's some stuff to be said there. Another thing that related to that, and I want to talk about Meta in a second, since we're talking VR headset, but since we're talking Apple, Fine Woven apparently is going to be finally
Mm.
retired, maybe after another series of products that they had already planned. Yeah, do you think they kind of messed that up? Like, it seems weird to me that Apple would mess it up. Like, I can understand that we don't want to do leather, but like, then to go to a completely unproven,
Yeah.
like, didn't they test this stuff?
I wonder that. Like it will be odd for them not to do any type of durability testing, but it seems like that's the case if they're getting rid of it, and if the case is because of consumer complaints about the durability of it, and it just seems weird that the testing didn't catch on that.
Yeah,
You
I'm a
know?
little puzzled by that one, and I'm glad that they're hopefully coming up with another solution.
Yeah.
And I'm personally I think this is a hashtag being a journalist thing or creative person thing, is that everybody sends me all the cases when a phone comes out, so I don't really buy
Hmm.
anything. I just look at
Yeah.
the pile and I go like, this one looks cool, I'll use this one. you know like- so I'm not generally buying Apple cases, but I can understand for those people out there who have used the old leather or silicone Apple cases that love them for whatever reason, went like, well, we can't possibly go wrong with this. Apple's, how can Apple screw that up? That's the part I'm like a little puzzled by, but I'm not surprised that, they're doing the typical Apple thing, not saying anything, just kind of like, these are not the
Yeah.
droids you're looking for, you know?
And just sunset it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it boggles me that they didn't catch the durability of it. And like you said, like we go through so many phones. I bought the case. I like how it feels, but I just don't. I'm switching phones, every other day. So I don't use it for a long time to really see it. So I don't have any bad damage of mine, but I'm not using it every day. So it's just
Yeah.
weird. It's just weird that they didn't catch it.
Ah, interesting. So you brought something up really interesting when we were discussing the topics by email. You talked about Meta, the big announcement they made this week that I
Yeah.
completely forgot to put in the topics. It's the announcement that they're opening their platform to other manufacturers. So what are your thoughts on that? I think for me, it's like, of course you do that. Like that's how Android became Android. Like I know Apple would never do it, but they're in a different universe. Meta, I think they're pretty ready for that because like that way you can use something else in Quest and still get the same experience and there's competition on the hardware, right? And they can focus their efforts on making the software and the OS really good. What's it called again?
I think
Their
it's Meta
OS?
OS. Yeah, I think
Yeah, is that what it is? Meta OS,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Anyway, thoughts on that?
That's good. I'm curious to see when they made that decision, whether it was before Apple where came out with the Vision Pro or afterwards. But no matter what, like you said, I think that if they can just focus on the software mostly, I think it'll help them save some money. But also, it keeps their Meta platform in the news all the time because they are going to be coming out with an Xbox styled one or version.
Oh
It might just
yeah.
be it might just come with an Xbox controller and stuff, but it's going to keep it in the news, right? Every couple of months, a new company's releasing a new Meta VR headset. That's going to be nice. And I think that with the Quest, they're already only going to upgrade it probably every 2 or 3 years anyway. I think it just makes sense. And I think they still have that advantage of they know what the next version of their software will be. So the next Meta headset will be, it'll have some technologies in it that their other manufacturers that they're working with might not, have yet or know to put into the device. But I think that if you allow these companies to say, look, we want to make a $3,500 headset to compete with the Vision Pro, and we're going to put the best optics that we have in it, it still has the Meta branding on it. They're still going to be making money from the apps and games sold in the store. They win. They're going to be winning.
Yeah. And then the other thing that's going to happen is OnePlus is going to come along and make a Meta headset or,
Yeah.
nothing or some other company or Rabbit and make it really affordable and cool, like
Mhm.
that's kind of where I'm hoping it's going to go because we saw what happened in the early days of smartphone, right? There was this relentless competition to get really great products out. And now we've kind of stabilized a bit, but at the same time, there's still innovation happening, right? So I think this is a good move for them. And especially in light of Meta glasses, I'm super gung ho about that. Like, I've never been a fan of VR. Like, I'm much more of an AR person. Now, Meta glasses are not AR, but I'm just saying, like, if I have a choice, I want something like my glasses here that has a small display in the corner, has, microphones, cameras, and maybe, bone conducting speaker or something. And I can use it as an assistant. I can use it to look something up. I don't really need to play games with it. I don't need to watch video for that. I think that's what I'm more excited about. So I know that Meta OS kind of covers both of these things, and so have this ability for other manufacturers to come in like ASUS and all the other players that have in the past done VR headsets, an AR device, an MR, XR, whatever you want to call it. I think that's great, and the price points are going to be very very. I think that
Yeah.
Meta Quest right now, the best one with the Pro whatever is like 700 or something. It's not that expensive compared to Apple's. And apparently you can watch those spatial videos I made with my phone
Yeah.
on that. Some of the
Yeah.
guys on in our chat room said that they were able to watch them with that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like what if there's like that older Quest that was really affordable? I can't remember the MetaQuest Go or something, the
Yeah,
$300 one. That thing.
Yeah.
That was
Go,
cool.
yeah.
I dug that because I'm like, for the kind of amount I'm going to use it, this is perfect,
Yeah.
So
Small, compact. You can throw it in your bag.
yeah,
Good for
standalone,
kids.
great stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Cool.
think I think software is always to me is the toughest part, and these hardware manufacturers they're working with, they know what they're doing with the hardware, but trying to catch up to Meta in the software department probably will just take them years. So now they can just marry the both. I think it'll be just a lot easier for all of them involved.
Yeah, and they have Qualcomm as a partner too, right?
Yeah.
So that's another big player in the game. And speaking of which, Qualcomm announced another Snapdragon X chip. You've got the X Elite for for ARM-based PC, Windows PCs running ARM chips, and now we have the Snapdragon X Plus, which is kind of slightly detuned. And as you probably know, folks, we've got Computex coming up at the end of May in Taiwan. It's a show I used to attend pretty regularly before COVID. I'm hoping to go back this year, but that's where all the big laptops announcements are made every year, with generally the new chips. So I think we're going to see a lot of that in the next few weeks, because this chips, that's another. I didn't expect them to launch. I figured we'd get the elite laptops at Computex, and that was it. What's your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I mean, with with AI and everything, you got to be aggressive. It's pedal to the metal. And I think, so I think Qualcomm is like, look, we need to get everything out and have the tools ready to take advantage of the AI.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely competing directly with, the Intel Ultra chips, and at a more affordable price point. Of course, got 5G and NPUs and GPUs, and it's very, very interesting. I'll link to an article from Hot Hardware where I write phone reviews, because they're big, PC nerds there. And they have a comparison of the difference between 10 cores, Orion cores, versus 12, right? And then the specs are very similar. So it just maybe by cutting down the cores, they can make it more affordable. It's also possible, and who knows, maybe they're, some of the yields on the chips are not ideal. So the chips that are coming out with some of the other cores not being as good, they can cut some cores down and still sell those chips instead of throwing them out. Might be more cost effective. That happens a lot. Intel does this all the time, right? So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm excited about it. I'm trying to go Computex. I want to see those new laptops, because I've been gung-ho about ARM, Mark, for years. Like 10 years ago, I was like, after I saw what the smartphones could do. I mean, I knew what ARM could do years ago before that, because I started using ARM devices in the 90s. And, the efficiency and power management and performance for the time was really impressive. And it's always been the case. It's just that it never kind of transitioned over to the compute world. It was always in the mobile phone world for the longest time. But when the 12-inch MacBook came out, the Retina display, ultra light, ultra thin with one port, in 2015, I bought one. It was Intel, but I was like, this is the future. Put ARM in this and we're good to go. They never did. We got the MacBook Air M1, which is the closest we came to that. Well, M2 and M3 are out now, but they're a little bulkier because they don't have that wedge shape. I want them to do a MacBook 12-inch again, maybe a 13, whatever, like the same form factor, right? But with M3 in it. And but at the same time, when Qualcomm announced that they were doing ARM for PC back in the day, they had a Snapdragon 855 or whatever or 850, Snapdragon 850, which was not a mobile chip, it was a PC chip. And they had that chip with on PCs, and it was just a beginning. And then they did the 8CX and 7CX. And the problem is Microsoft was never fully on board. I think this time around they're there. Yeah. And those chips also competitive with Apple and competitive with Intel Core Ultra, which I think is going to change the game. And I'm really, really hoping, we can, for my friends who don't want to use a Mac and love their PC and Windows, that they can go out there and buy something that'll run 18 hours on a charge, like my M2 Air that's recording right now. Because it's a game changer. You can go up on a flight and work like all the way to Japan. Like, it's like, without plugging in. You can edit video. You can do all kinds of heavy duty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm super stoked about it. And I can't wait to see what's coming with that. We've got a bunch of phone news too. I think you're really excited about this as well. It's the Huawei P series, which is now called Pura. So Pura, the next P was going to be the P70, but now it's called Pura 70. So there's, of course, the series, which is like the 70, 70 Pro, 70 Pro Plus. The Pro Plus was always kind of like the crazy smartphone for Huawei. And now they've gone Ultra, we've got a P70 Ultra, which is crazy ass. Now, all these phones have a new chip, the Kirin 9010, which is, again, homebrew, freaking out the American government kind of chip at 7 nanometers, just kind of like the Mate 60 chip back in the fall. That makes me laugh because this whole ban is so stupid. I mean, for consumer stuff, for like, servers and infrastructure, I kind of get where they're coming from, but like the phones, seriously, come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, these things are baller. They're super cool. The Ultra has a retractable camera, similar to this Techno phone from a while back. Like a year ago, Techno made this phone where the telephoto was like that. It popped up like that because they needed more Z depth, right? Like they didn't want to do a periscope, so instead they just make the camera pop out. And I'm seeing the same thing's happening here because it's a 1-inch sensor. Variable aperture, kind of like the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. This thing is great. Like, what are your thoughts on it? Like, do you want one? I kind of want one.
Yeah, I do. Any phone that has parts that move, I like it.
I know, right? And then it looks kind of different.
OnePlus 7 Pro, like anything that has something like that.
Oh man,
because that's the best way to do it. Outside of image AI or doing anything in the software, you need some physical components to really push these smartphone cameras to the next level. And I just can't wait. I can't wait to see if they do it right. I zoom in a lot, just like you were talking about before. Like I love to zoom in, and so this would be fun.
Yeah, what's interesting here is that the retractable part is just for the main sensor. So it's really about getting that Z depth so you can get better optics on that 1-inch variable aperture sensor. The telephoto is a periscope on there. And no, it's just a super cool looking phone. And, I think for me, half of the battle here, half of what got me excited, it's forbidden fruit. I can't get it. So, of course, I want it. Yeah. And I have a history with Huawei. Like, I really enjoyed their phones back in the day. Because photography, they're always a leader. And they still are. Like, I use the Mate 60 Pro, actually, at the Qualcomm Snapdragon Summit. Somebody had one there. I used it for a bit, and I'm like, wow. Like, even with that older 7 nanometer chip that's homebrew, they were still getting like quality of photos. Like they definitely have their stuff still up there in terms of performance. So this is going to be just as good, just as exciting. And other specs. So of course, 50 megapixel. There's a 3.5x telephoto, and the ultra wide is 40 megapixel. Oh, the other thing about the main sensor on this, it's an RYYB sensor, like Huawei's done in the past. It's basically, instead of RGB, it's like red, green, blue cells or sensors. It's RYYB. So red, 2 yellows, and a blue. The 2 yellows kind of replicate what green would be. So the color science has to be adjusted for that. But they've been doing that since like the P20 series. So it basically, the result of that is better low light performance across the board. So this thing should be kind of insane. And of course, variable aperture is 1.6 to 4.0. That's the same as the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. But yeah, like you look at the camera specs on this and just like my mouth is watering. Oh man. Let's see what else. Battery. Oh yeah, of course. Like, this is so China. I love it. Like, oh yeah, IP68, 5200 milliamp hour battery, 100 watt wire charging, 80 watt wireless. Get this, Mark, 20 watt reverse wireless.
That's nice.
Like, why not? Let's go crazy. Okay, the prices though are like pretty steep even for China. Like $1,380 for the base model, which is, well, it's pretty good. 16 gigs.
You get 512.
Yeah.
The storage is good, but
wow, this thing, I don't know. The camera bump does look a bit weird, but I'll take it. It's good.
Yep.
So, that's basically it. There's also I'll link to another GSM Arena story that has the details on the lesser phones if you guys want to check that out. But honestly, the thing, every time I think of importing one of those, like I was actually seriously going to try to get a Mate 60 Pro imported. Trinity Electronics in Hong Kong. They're friends of Ben Sins, who writes a lot of phone reviews for Forbes and others, I'm sure. And of course, I think he writes for XDA as well. He can hook you up. But I thought about it and I was like, the problem is that I'm going to be like super happy for a week. And then I'm going to realize that 6 months from now, this will come out, right? And I don't want that. And then I'm like, no, this is not sustainable, right? Like I cannot, like the fact that I get free phones to review is the whole point right now. That's the whole point. I cannot stray too far from that. So yeah, it's very tempting though. All right, other phone news. Vivo X100. Have you heard or played with the X100 Pro, the one that's currently their flagship?
No, I haven't.
It's it's not quite as crazy as the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, the Oppo Find X7 Ultra. It only has 350 megapixel camera in the rear, not 4, God forbid. But what's really interesting is the telephoto on the X100 Pro is like one of the best across the board. And it's a periscope, big sensor, very high quality, great optics, and it's got a Dimensity 9300, which is, the kind of top of the line MediaTek chip. So it's kind of unusual in that sense. It's only China though. It's hard to get. So there's now rumors of an Ultra, which is adding a fourth 50 megapixel camera, of course, because everybody else is doing it. And that thing will have a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. And, supposedly that second periscope telephoto, where it's both of them periscopes, I don't know. But the big one, the most magnification is a 200 megapixel. And so they're saying like with 200 megapixel, and I don't know what it is, 5x magnification, you can reach to 200x zoom, like without loss of quality or something crazy like that. And I'm just like, holy crapola. So like, I had to include it, Mark. I'm sorry. That was like, come on. It's like camera nerd like me.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I say go all the way with the cameras. That's the main thing. I'm fine if all smartphone companies just left their phones the same from the last 2 years and just put all their resources into just making these cameras ridiculously good. I'm for it. So this 100 millimeter,
it's a 4.3x
periscope.
Periscope 200 megapixels.
That's gonna be crazy.
And then of course they have basically the big news here is that they have a new branding for this. Like they still have the Zeiss partnership that they've always had, but Blue Image is their new brand. That's basically like the kind of whole enchilada of the tech that they're using for imaging, which is including their, image processing, like computational photography algorithms, their color science, their optics, their sensors, the way everything is managed. A very, very interesting, honestly. I've always been a big fan of the Vivo X series. I've played with many of them over the years, and they've always been super awesome. The only problem, Mark, is the software on these FunTouch OS. In China, they have Origin OS, I think it's called, or maybe that's for OnePlus. I can't remember. There's a different version of the OS in China, which is actually much nicer. But if you get the global models of these X series, it's always FunTouch, and FunTouch sounds wrong, but it's also wrong. Like it's really not a pleasant Android skin to use. So that hopefully they change. There's lots of hope that this will be a global phone and not a China only, the Ultra. So let's see how it pans out. Related to that, they've already announced an S series, so X100S, kind of like, Xiaomi does the 14 and the 14T comes out later, right? Like last year we had 13T. I think those are going to be little price reduced versions. They're also going completely rectangular, meaning no curved edges, which has been a signature of X series forever. And as you know, everybody's copying the iPhone, so you got to have those slab sides and that flat glass and those hard edges that destroy your hands. I'm joking. I don't care. I don't mind, honestly, because I generally put a case. These phones always come with one of those prepackaged cases on them, and I'm just like, whatever. I'll just use that. It's fine. But it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. That's a rumor right now, or a leak. So we'll stay tuned. If you're a Vivo fan out there, I know you exist out there. just hang tight. There's good stuff coming. Polestar Phone. So I cover cars as well, right, Mark? Yep. And back in October or September, Polestar had their like world big, EV kind of event where they're like talking about the future, the new cars. They had all the upcoming car, Polestar 3, Polestar 4 on display. They had the prototypes for the Polestar 5 and the Roadster as well on display. And then I'm there, you know, doing my car thing, photos, videos for Tech Radar. And then all of a sudden in the presentation, they show a freaking phone that looks super baller hot. And I'm like, oh, OMG, I want this thing. What is it? It's a Polestar phone. And the background here is that the company that makes Polestar cars and Volvo and a whole bunch of Chinese brands is called Geely or Geely. They make Zeekr as well, which is what the Polestar 4 is, basically a rebranded Zeekr. They recently bought Meizu, the smartphone manufacturer. So Meizu started at the same time as Xiaomi, and they were both kind of like 15 years ago, whenever, 2010s, like they were trying to like seize the Android market in China. It's like a big battle. Like, you know, I don't know if you know Richard Lai of Engadget, who's based in Hong Kong. He was always like gung-ho about Meizu because he was like on the Meizu side. And some people were like, Xiaomi. And then Xiaomi won, obviously. Now they make cars even. So, you know, but Meizu kind of like petered out. I reviewed some of their phones like about 7 years ago or so, and they were kind of mad, but they survived somehow. They've always made flagships, China only. They're always like the latest Qualcomm chips and like basically what you expect, right? But the software is always kind of, then they got bought by Geely, mostly because they want to use their OS in the car. And you know, that's the thing about the big difference, right? And I write about this a lot on Tech Radar, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because, you know, here we have Android Auto and CarPlay, or if you're Tesla or Rivian or Lucid. Well, actually, Lucid has CarPlay and Android Auto. But if you're Rivian and Tesla, you're just going to do your own thing. And I think actually that's the way to go. Honestly, I feel like ideally what I want to do is what kind of Polestar is doing in the West, which is you log in with your Google account and all your stuff is there. You don't have to mirror. The whole concept of mirroring is kind of like a cop-out to me. Like, I get why it works. I understand that people love it because they change cars, they rent a car, and it works. But imagine you just logged in instead. Like, all of the stuff is there, but you don't even waste your battery on your phone. You don't even use your data plan. It's just your car. But all the stuff is, all the apps, everything is there. And then if it's a rental car, you leave and you hit the delete button. Because just like when you return your rental car and you disconnect hopefully you all do that, disconnect your Android Auto and CarPlay and remove the Bluetooth connection. That to me is the way to go. Now, Apple's never going to let you do that. Like, Apple's never going to let Porsche log you in or you know, Toyota log you in to their but, you know, I'm sorry if you're an Apple user, but I think Android, we have the potential, right? And China's been doing that in their own kind of siloed ecosystems for quite a while. Like with Xiaomi, you know, in their SU7 electric car, you log in with your Xiaomi ID and all the stuff from your phone is there. Polestar is doing the same now with this Polestar phone in China only, with the cars in China only, because they're all running the same Meizu OS. What do you take on that? Do you think we're going to eventually get to a point where that happens, at least for us Android users? Because I cannot wait. I'm so sick and tired of the projection stuff.
I think so. I think as long as you have some way to identify the user, you know, you have some type of fingerprint sensor or recognition to make sure no one just get in your car and has access to everything.
Or even just the phone.
By hitting the start button.
Your phone is the token, right? Like, that's how it is on my Tesla, right? It's like he lets you in and then you're in and you're good, right? No, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this develops. So I'm kind of gung-ho about it. Have you looked at the pictures of the phone? That thing is super
The phone
hot.
looks great. I like the camera sensors layout on the back. It's a clean looking phone. We'll see how the software experience is.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's going to be the thing. But look at the bezels on that thing. It looks like the Red Magic, you know, like what bezels?
It matches the car. Yeah, it matches the look of the car for sure.
It's very cool. And so it turns out this phone, you know, of course, is a rebranded Meizu flagship, right? Because they still make phones somehow, even though they're part of Geely. I never know if it's Geely or Geely. Damn, I have to really figure that out. I just should ask the PR people. It's like, you know how they did all these like, this is how you pronounce Xiaomi, right?
Yeah, especially when Huawei first came over.
Wow, it was Huawei. Yeah, it was Huawei. That was funny.
Yes, it's fine.
So that's the thing. The other thing that's happened this week is, this has kind of got me intrigued. I've never heard of this brand, and maybe I should because I'm a bit of an audio nerd. Moondrop is apparently a company that makes high-end DACs and accessories for audio, like portable, stuff. And now they have a phone, like an entire Android phone that's dedicated to high quality audio. It's kind of crazy. Specs are mid-range-ish, right? Like, what do you think of this thing?
Well, I'm not a super audio nerd, but there is an audience for people who want high quality audio on the go. And so I think that, yeah, I mean, you're not buying this for the cameras, probably. You're not buying for anything else. So if they nail the audio reproduction
experience.
and gives those audiophiles who really want high quality audio, that I think there's a niche enough market for it.
I love this. This is what I love about Android, right? Like, Mark, this is it. Look at it. Some crazy company in China or whatever decided, like, we're going to make an audio phone. And boom, here you go. And this is the thing that's kind of unusual about it. You're going to say, what does that mean? Well, it's got two headphone jacks. One is a 4.4 millimeter balanced, which is really used in super high-end headphones. And then, of course, 3.5 millimeter jack as well. It's got a very powerful amplifier behind that. It's got Cirrus Logic Master Hi-Fi DACs and special components for the quality of the audio, analog stuff. It's got the rest of the specs, I said, very mid-range. It's Dimensity, I think, 7050. And it's got, like pretty large amounts of storage with up to 2 terabytes of micro SD, which makes sense if you're storing all kinds of, like uncompressed audio on there. And, it's got like a camera and 64 megapixels. Probably the rest of it sounds very generic, but it does look kind of cool too, right? Like, has this kind of red magic vibe to it. I kind of dig it.
Yeah. And what the global price, $399?
Yeah, it's not too bad, right? $399. Yeah. So it's available globally. I should hit up their PR people. They'll be like, who are you? You should hit up their PR people. I know you're not enough of an audio geek. I get it. Brandon should do it.
Yeah.
Brandon Lee. We need to get him on that. I'm gonna ping him and ask him. All right. Okay, the last one. This I just put in there for you HMD Nokia lovers out there. This is a very intriguing, I'm more concerned than I'm intrigued, to be honest. HMD, as you know, at MWC announced that they're going to start selling phones under their own brand, no longer necessarily just Nokia branded smartphones. And sure enough, here we go, the HMD Pulse series out, 3 phones. And I'm thinking to myself, they've always made kind of budgety, mid-range-ish, maybe more on the budget than mid-range side phones for Nokia brands. And yeah, sure enough, it's a repeat of that. But what really intrigues me of that, those phones are not very exciting. But like the chipset, did you see that? Unisoc T606. Okay, Unisoc is a Chinese, I think, manufacturer of chips that are primarily used in tablets. I think some of the Fire tablets had Unisoc chips. And so, they've been around, but they're like a tiny little player in the world. And I'm really surprised to see that. Obviously, it's cheaper than MediaTek and Qualcomm. And if you look at the prices of these phones, it's affordable, but I'm not sure the experience is going to be particularly great, especially with 50 megapixel cameras. Those cameras are going to be potatoes, I'm sure.
You're just getting this to take phone calls.
How can this thing be? So there's a Pulse, and then there's a Pulse Plus, and then a Pulse Pro, and they all look like minor variations on each other. Ooh, the Pulse Pro gets you 20-watt charging instead of 10-watt charging. So you see where you're playing here. And this is weird to me, this is the thing. I don't know if you were there when HMD acquired the Nokia brand, like a decade ago or something. It was a big deal. I was at MWC in Barcelona for it. I'm kind of bummed. At the time, they were like, we're going to make all kinds of phones. And they did. They tried to make the PureView with the 9 cameras, remember? Nokia and whatever it was called, 9 PureView. And then they did some mid-rangers that are really nice metal and glass, like mid-range specs, some higher-end specs too. They were all over the place. And then one day, some new bean counters came in to run the company and were like, nope, we're doing budget and mid-range phones. And it just went slowly downhill from there. The last Nokia phone made by HMD I reviewed was a Nokia 8.3 Verizon model, the one that they sold, I want to say 2020 or 21. Maybe before that, maybe 19. Anyway, the point is it was kind of not very good for a mid-ranger compare like to a Pixel A at the time or something.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, what are you guys doing? And now they're just like, now we're going to rebrand this because we don't think Nokia is we don't want to soil the Nokia brand with our crap phones. That's what it feels like to me. I actually thought it'd be the other way around. I thought like, we're going out as HMD, rah, we're going to make some nicer phones now because we've destroyed the Nokia brand with our crap phones. Nope, Unisoc, let's go lower. Oh man, such a sad ending.
I know.
Do you have any feelings, Mark?
I have zero feelings. I think the Plus has a micro SD card slot, so I'm happy.
Ooh, watch out. You're excited about that. No, I only put it in there because it's kind of more reflection on the state of things. I'm just like, oh man, what could have been and isn't, It's funny. I was talking, my black car driver in LA yesterday coming back from Mercedes was like, Nokia, I don't know. I brought up Nokia for some reason. He's like, Nokia still exists? I'm like, yeah, they make smartphones abroad. They're like, wow, I haven't heard that name in so long, And I'm like, yeah, I feel you. It's like,
it was a good time back in the day.
You have to be a certain age to know that brand now. Oh man, so sad. Oh, wow. Listen, Mark, we should wrap up. Do you want to tell folks where they can find you on the internet, your various social media handles, let them know about your YouTube channel, whatever other projects you might be working on?
Oh, yeah. You can go to soldierknowsbest.com. That'll take you to my YouTube channel, or just look up Soldier Knows Best. And Instagram is Mark Watson. Twitter, Soldier Know Best. I ran out of characters to add the S. And then, those are my major places. But the main place is YouTube, Soldier Knows Best. And
right
shout me out.
Are you also on Threads?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
I
cool.
am on that.
Instagram, yeah. I wasn't sure if you joined or not. You know where to find me, folks. I'm at Tankgirl, TNKGRL everywhere. The Tankgirl, the comic book, drop all the vowels, get my handle, put it into Twitter or Threads or Insta and Blue Sky as well. You can chat with me there, chat with Mark and I on these platforms. And then, there is obviously the podcast, mobiletechpodcast.com, where I have all the platforms. So whatever your podcast player is, please subscribe. And if your app lets you review or rate the show, please consider doing that. That'd be pretty awesome.
5 stars.
5 stars. Thank you. Yeah. If you want to check out some videos, there's a YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. You'll find mostly some unboxing videos there. I tend to be like maybe once a month right now because that's a working pace for me. So check it out if you want to see some of those gadgets closer up in video. This is definitely going to get unboxed today at some point in video captured, so stay tuned for that. And then you know how YouTube works. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the bell, comment, all that good stuff. And more importantly, if you want to help me out, there is a patreon.com/tankgirl, TNKGRL. There's a video version of this podcast, $5 a month. Gets you access to the video in advance. So it's the same podcast generally, but there's sometimes bloopers and extra content if we go over time. And you get that couple of days in advance, and it helps me out. So consider doing that. There's also a PayPal link in the show notes you can click through and make a one-time donation, buy me a coffee or something. I'd appreciate it. And I want to thank our sponsor, Mint Mobile. So as you know, I'm constantly reviewing multiple phones, and while that's fun, it also means I'm constantly spending a lot of money for wireless service on multiple SIMs. That's where Mint Mobile comes in, and that's who I'm partnering with for today's podcast. If you also want to save money on your wireless service, switch to Mint Mobile. As tech-savvy early adopters, you've probably heard of Mint Mobile before, but let me quickly tell you how awesome their service is. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? In my experience testing phones, Mint Mobile delivers the same data speeds and call quality as the big three for a fraction of the cost. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their eSIMs, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. No more standing around and waiting in line at a big wireless store. You can keep your current device and phone number and easily switch services. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM free of charge. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, lightning fast 5G, and free mobile hotspot. Mint will show you how much data you use each month and recommend plans that save you money. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. Use my link mintmobile.com/mobiletech to get premium wireless starting for $15 a month. That's mintmobile.com/mobiletech. Stop paying more than you need on your wireless bill and start saving big with Mint Mobile. And Mark, thanks for being my guest yet again. It was such a delight to have you on the show.
No problem. Anytime.
Awesome. Well, listen, we'll have another show next week, folks, so stay tuned for that. And until then, cheers, everybody.